You unfortunately didn't get the funding for Push, and I was just wondering, you have a trailer with 50,000 people in it. What are the next steps, and how can we help more?
You guys are, thank you, that's so awesome of you to ask about that. No, didn't get the funding for the first round, but we have like plan B, C, X, Y, X. So plan B is we applied for another funding body this past week, so we'll see how that goes, and then plan C is just pay for it and make it ourselves. And how you guys can help? Well, it's been so helpful because you guys did all the like flat burning stuff and all the amazing like social stuff. So we were able to take all of those numbers and we created this huge marketing plan with all those numbers in one document, and that was immensely helpful. So how people can help is just continue with the flat burning and continue to engage with Pooch the series, so we can just keep using those metrics. We're going to go after some sponsorship as well, but what they need to see is they need to see evidence of an audience that already exists. So that's basically it, just engage, and use the little flat burning and make them go everywhere in the world, and it's incredibly helpful. And we can really use those numbers, so it's been amazing to see everybody get behind it, so thank you for asking about that and supporting it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's Vegas.
I was wondering what has been inspired you lately? Books, movies, TV shows that you've been really into lately?
I just watched the Unicorn Store.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah.
Love it? No, I haven't seen it. It's so cute.
Oh my god. I mean, surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
but I just thought it was so beautiful. Everything about it is stunning. That woman is so special.
Oh, she's so talented. Yeah, we were.
Yeah. How real she is and how amazing, and that's the story that she's chosen to tell. You have to watch it. I won't spoil anything, but
is there a unicorn?
Oh,
yeah.
I bawled and my eyes out. It was like everything about that character spoke to me in such a big way. But the first thing.
That's amazing. What did you watch?
So just because obviously I'm like 4 years behind everything, I watched Crazy Rich Asians on the plane. And like thought I was going to die, but I was like, yeah, there's a worse way to go because it was so windy when I was landing. But I was so moved by it. I was just so moved by the fact that the entire cast was Asian. And I remember, it's funny, I saw Black Panther on the plane too, because I'm always on the plane. I live on a plane, please print that. No. Just like I remember the first 10 minutes when I just saw the cast, and like it just was treated so normal and it was so rich, and all the characters were so different, and yet it was almost an all Asian cast. And I just was like, God, it's just so incredible that we see this now. And so many people next to me on the plane were like watching it, and I was like, I just don't want to take this for granted at this moment in history that we're getting more and more of these stories, and I hope we can continue to do that, where we can just tell all sorts of stories that everyone can laugh at and love that. So I loved it.
I'm watching, now the name is escaping me completely. What did I just watch? Guys, Netflix, like story goes over and over.
Oh, so good.
Thank you.
I loved it. Good one, good one.
So good.
Yeah, so good.
I loved it.
I
love the ideas behind it. Yeah, it's really quite good. It's quite good, and I really want to get into American Gods. I feel like people are really either camp yes or camp no.
You know what you should watch? I've already talked about this
What?
to end, but The Good Place.
Oh yeah,
yes,
it's so
I've
funny.
seen a lot of the good.
It's so
I
funny.
like The Good Place.
Yeah,
I've seen like season 1, and then I kind of got off track, but I should get back on the bandwagon with that. Yeah. And also, has anyone seen Vox Lux yet?
Yeah. With Natalie Portman?
Yes, Natalie Portman. It's just come out. It's so good. No, it's a movie. It's a film. It's like it's just so good. There's a lot of really interesting like storytelling choices and the way they tell the story. It's just she's great.
Yeah, she's fearless.
She's great.
This is for all of you. How do you feel the acceptance of queer content has changed in the media over the last 5 years?
Over the last 5 years?
Or 10 or 20.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm only 16 years old.
About 6 months.
Yeah. I just think there's no more denying that there's such a powerful audience for queer storytelling, and I just think we are seeing more diverse ways, again, to tell queer stories, which is incredible. I think we have seen comedies, we have seen dramas, we have seen romances, we've all seen Carol many, many times. So that kind of bolsters me. I feel like there's not just one way to tell a queer story, which sounds unusual, but certainly when I was starting out, I feel like when you introduced a character who was LGBTQ, you know, everybody, it was necessary to have their coming out story and their struggle and maybe some challenges with their home life, but certainly is still a very important part of, you know, growing up queer. But I feel like that's not the only story we have to tell anymore. Now they're just part of the world and part of their own world and have their own friendships and relationships. So again, that kind of makes me happy that you know, this is such a good example, I think, of not having to have the same type of gay character on the show, for example. So for Wynonna Earp, we're able to have multiple, you know, representations of LGBTQ characters and relationships and friendships and family relationships and whatnot. So that makes me happy. Any story you want to tell with characters who happen to be LGBTQ, I feel like there's an audience for it, so that's great. Please get me some gay astronauts. That's all I'm saying.
You guys go to lots of cons, obviously meet fans all the time.
The perfect amount, though. Yeah.
What is it maybe about coming back to this ClexaCon this time that's like special to get to be with the fans?
It's been a tough winter.
Sorry, did I jump on your answer?
Both physically, because I live in Canada, and just because obviously you're all being very disciplined, but like we're definitely in a unique situation this year insofar as fighting for the type of storytelling we want to do, which is Wynonna Earp season 4. So for me personally, I think just for us to be together and to see the fans and see some Earpers and remember how much it matters what we do, it just feels like a tonic, for lack of a better term. It's just energizing. You know what I mean?
It's also really comforting.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're all going through it together, but separately, and when we come together, there's like this really nice thing that happens where you're just like, oh no, the magic is still there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, there's so much magic and so much power in these conventions, and when all of the community gets together, I'm like, that can't go unnoticed. Do you know what I mean? So then it just gives me hope, and it just gives me this kind of sense of the universe will align itself to make it work. But like maybe that's extremely hopeful, but that's how I think
It's a perfect amount.
Yeah.
Emily, you write and you act a lot, but please talk about when you hear those statistics and you hear those reports coming out of GLAAD, how does it influence what you're doing when you're writing scripts and creating characters? Because you have a responsibility to your network and just to framework of your own show, but there's also that reality that's out there. Can you talk about how you kind of approach that as you work in your writing?
Sure. I wish I acted. I don't act, but I do write. I have an advantage, which I feel like when you are a show writer or creator, your entire life is compromise. You know, you're compromising on choices from lots of other decision makers, people who hold the money strings, what have you. In a weird way, I feel like it's gotten easier for me because a long time ago, I knew that like writing LGBTQ characters and showcasing those relationships was always going to be part of anything I did, and that was just a line in the sand for me that I was always going to fight for. I just knew I was going to compromise on other things, but for me that was the one I was cheerfully going to say, no, this is what it is, and this is kind of what I insist upon. And if that's not okay for you, you need to find another creator or another writer. That's always been really important for me. So I feel like I'm incredibly blessed now because that's a little bit part of what people expect maybe when I come to the table with a project. I'm going to try to make it as diverse and unique and representative as possible. I'm also like in an incredibly beneficial position because quite frankly, I feel like I'm from Canada and I just feel like, you know, one of the first things I did in my career was work on a show created by Michelle Loretta called Lost Girl, which figured a bisexual lead. And like nobody in Canada really blinked. They were just like, how can we afford all this leather? That was so I also just feel like I'm lucky to live in a country that maybe is a little bit more forward-thinking insofar as representing all different types of characters and storylines. And the other secret is genre, right? Like, genre is just the playground of all sorts of different people, all sorts of different characters, creatures, and whatnot. So it's a really good place to tell the story of the underdog or people who aren't maybe represented all the time. Certainly the statistics are sobering from GLAAD. GLAAD has been so supportive of our show, and we in turn work really closely with them. These two in particular are incredible with working with GLAAD. And there's days where it's still incredibly depressing, but I think in this day and age more than ever, we just have to concentrate on the fact that it's getting better. Look at all the press that are in this room. Look at all the fans that are out there wanting to tell these stories. ClexaCon gets bigger every single year, and every single year it just makes me feel like there's no way I'd bet against this, and nobody else should either.
What's that?
I got a tiny bit of vodka.
If you could enact one law that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
Whoa. I'm such a nerd one. I feel like I would like people to take empathy training. I feel like that's something that's being lost a bit, like as people sort of create new products, or there's so much emphasis on making money, or I don't know, just taking an ethics course, which sounds kind of old-fashioned, but do you know what I mean? Just like remembering how we treat each other, and like thinking about things like if you're creating a social media platform, how that might be, again, it's the vodka, like in the good place. Like, I actually think there's kind of like, there's been a lot of, we sort of scoff at the humanities and like ethics. It's a way more boring law. I should think of something really sexy to say. Everyone should have a mohawk at least once in their life. I guess that's what I think.
And schools should implement meditation as mandatory.
Oh, that's a good one too.
And lots of people are, which is really exciting. Lots of places in the world are. But that's also probably...
Plus, if you don't use your signal turning left, you just get next to
You guys have such good ones.
You didn't have enough vodka.
I know. How can you top empathy and meditation? You guys, you killed it.
You need something silly.
Silly? Okay. High heels should be outlawed.
I know. That's
Go ahead. So, sort of building off of that, if you had to choose one law that had to be enacted just in media, what would you enact?
Can we say 50-50 gender representation?
I wish we would stop referring to women in terms of how they look all the time in media, or whether they're likable, because I don't give a shit if you're likable. I just want you to please make sure we can have some abortion. That's right, that's not my quote, I'm just kidding. No choice. That's the quote. No, I just mean, I think the way we talk about women in the media, please don't put that on me, all $1 million. No, I'm just kidding. I just mean, I wish we didn't refer to women in terms of their appearance so much in the media. I wish we would just stop talking at all about how people look versus who they are and what they do. What about abortion? It's like a C+. It's a C+.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot of us struggling with peak TV. I'm a television journalist, obviously.
Right.
And it's sort of like reality TV 10 years ago. People say, when is it over? But the history of TV has generally been, there's a lot of programming, more people are included. When programming shrinks or if networks become more successful, they get wider and whiter and straighter. Are you worried about possibility of peak TV being reached and a contraction of programming?
No, it just means like there's so much TV on right now that like nobody as a critic, it's like impossible to watch everything. Right. So like, I actually don't. I'm very hopeful. I feel like, no, I think more than ever, I think the days of getting a show that's going to get 40 million viewers like MASH are gone. So I think networks are more in tune with the fact that niche audience is where it is at, to be honest. Like, I think there is an audience for diversity and different types of shows, and I think those are the shows that are getting attention. I personally believe, and I believe the opposite is happening, that we need more different stories to I don't think the same type of story, the same reboot over and over and over again with white dudes is going to work. Do you know what I mean? With, you know, the straight male anti-hero. I feel like we've all seen that show and it's been done very well by certain people and we've kind of heard that story. So, no, I think the opposite is going to happen. I think the way we measure success in television is changing too. If nobody is getting 30 million viewers. What's a successful show? Is it a show that gets a lot of buzz? Will advertisers like that? They can maybe reach an audience that's not traditionally reached easily through media. So no, I don't think we're going back. Do you know what I mean? I just don't think that's going to happen, and I especially think this next generation coming up is just not going to settle for those types of shows anymore. So I still hope the cream rises to the top. How about that? Not the white cream, though. Cream's the wrong term. No, I'm saying no. I think in my experiences, I feel like networks are more than ever looking at diversity. Finally, they're behind everybody else, but I feel like they realize that's the future of storytelling because those are the stories that have not been told.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.